This is the Comics Alternative Interviews, a conversation with Evan Dorkin, Part 2. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative Interviews. I'm Derek.
And I'm Gene. And we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
That's right. And this is the second half of our two-part interview with Evan Dorkin. If you listened to yesterday's show, you know that Gene and I recently talked with Evan about the Eltingville Club, Beasts of Burden, and a variety of other projects that he has underway or has done in the past. And it was such a long and involved and fun interview that we decided to break it up over 2 days. So the first half, if you didn't listen to it, then make sure that I guess you don't have to listen to the first half before the second, but it probably makes sense. But if you haven't listened to it, it came out the day before, so catch up on that. This is the second half, and as Gene teased yesterday, the net is cast broader in this second half, and we cover a lot of different topics.
Alternative comics, indie comics, mainstream comics, superheroes, not superheroes, a little bit of film. I think we cover pretty much everything.
Yeah, we do. But before we get to the second half, we want to let all of the listeners know that this episode of the Comics Alternative Interviews is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off of the cover price, and every single month you're going to find some incredible specials, and March is no exception. Sometimes those specials will be at 45% off cover price, sometimes at 50% off cover price, but often the discounts can go higher from there.
That's right. There's discounts on lots and lots of different bundles, but right now we're focusing on the Dorkin bundles, which aren't really bundles, but we've got Dorkin material at dcbservice.com, including Beasts of Burden with the cat dragged in, the brand new one-shot that's coming out in a couple of months. You can order that at 50% off. Plus, there's the Beasts of Burden hardcover, the Milk and Cheese hardcover, the Eltingville Club hardcover, even the Bill and Ted Most Excellent Comic Book Archive hardcover. All at least 35% off or more if you order them through dcbservice.com.
Yeah, those are great discounts, and you really can't beat those prices. So check out Discount Comic Book Service website, dcbservice.com. It's the place for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do pre-order your comics there, be sure to send them an email and say, hey, the two guys with PhDs sent me.
That's right. And while you're waiting for your comics to show up, you can also order some nice coffee to drink along with those new comics from justcoffee.coop.
That's right. They also sponsor the Comics Alternative. It's a great place to get coffee, tea, and chocolates. All of their coffee is 100% fair trade, shade-grown, and organic certified. And everything is roasted to order. They do it in small batches. There's no mass production.
And when you do your order through justcoffee.coop, if you use the coupon code COMICS, that's COMICS, you get 10% off your order. And shipping is always free when you order through justcoffee.coop.
Yeah, so, you can't beat the prices, you can't beat the discount, and you definitely can't beat the coffee. That's justcoffee.coop. It's a great place to get caffeinated. So, Gene, here we are, the second half of our Evan Dorkin interview.
The Marathon Comics interview to end all Marathon Comics interviews. This was again, it was so much fun, and I think that comes through in listening to it as well as just having done it.
Exactly. And, I'm reminded of that story in the Eltingville Club called The Marathon Men, where we're there watching all the episodes of The Twilight Zone, and things end up going really crazy, even psychotic. Now, it doesn't get crazy and psychotic with their interview, but it does go on for quite a while, as we pointed out yesterday. I think total it's over 2 hours and 45 minutes. The first half was yesterday. The second half is today. So we hope you guys enjoy our wrap-up of the interview with Evan Dorkin.
Take it away, Evan.
Let me ask, in terms of Beast of Burden, do you feel that this now, because, when did you start this? 2003 was the first Beast of Burden story?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so this has been around for a good while now. Do you feel that when you're at conventions or when people hear your name, Evan Dorkin, and they know your work, that they're getting to a point now that they're going to immediately think of Beasts of Burden instead of something like Milk and Cheese?
I don't know. That's interesting. I wouldn't even know how to find out or guess. Older people probably know Milk and Cheese and Eltingville. I probably have younger readers. We probably have younger readers on Beasts of Burden. I mean, by younger, I mean 30s and under. No. I'm good. Like I said, I'm going to be 51. I'm immature. I still think the 70s were just 15 years ago. Sometimes, it's
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Aging is a really weird thing that everybody jokes about, but you just don't know what it's like until you find that you realize you've got less years left than you lived.
This is turning into a Sinatra song now.
Fuck Sinatra.
Yeah.
No, I like early Sinatra. I like Tommy Dorsey era Sinatra. I don't like Sinatra shows up and goes bip bam bam. I can't stand that. Wedding song Sinatra I'm not into, but whatever. New York, New York. It sounds like he's drunk during that song. But anyway, I don't know. Beast of Burden is definitely the most successful thing I've done that I've worked on of the creator-owned stuff. There's probably more copies of Milk and Cheese out there because it did really well in the 90s. But, that was the 90s. And independent stapled comics could do better back then. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time still trying to do independent stapled comics in after 2000. That was a big mistake, I guess. I still like doing them. I'll probably still do them, but,
Well, do you get tired of people asking you about Milk and Cheese?
No.
Okay, good, because I want to ask you about Milk and Cheese.
Well, you can do that later. You can do that in part 5 of this interview. But, no, Beast is, Beast, younger people, obviously, I've seen the sales figures. Beast is in the 6th printing of the first book.
Nice.
That's the book that I think people would be happiest if it came back from of the stuff that I'm involved with. I have a lot of stories that I'd like us to tell. Jill wants to do a Christmas story, and I had an idea for that, and I'm hoping we can do that. It's a happy one. It's a goofy one. We have to have a happy one at some point where it's just happy. Holy shit! I think that's why in Hunters and Gatherers, I had one of them one of them said, "Good guys won," because they don't win very well. I mean, that was on purpose. Part of Lost was a mechanical thing. It wasn't just an emotional thing. It got more emotional as it went on because I realized I was writing about my fear of losing if anything ever happened to my daughter. That's the well it came from. I guess it's not a good thing to say because they're all drowned in the end of the story, but yeah, I realized I was tapping into the free floating anxiety of being a parent and not feeling like I know what I'm doing and hoping for the best for my child. And oh my God, what would happen if something happened to this child? But at the same time, the genesis of the story was I wanted them to lose. I wanted them to fail. Heroes in genre for good purposes generally succeed. I mean, I always loved the idea that Peter Parker would win but lose in the early stories, and he probably still does. But he would beat somebody up and nobody would know it, that he won the day, or his costume would get ripped, or it would screw up his relationships with girlfriends or in girls he liked. And I thought, you've got these characters who are learning about the occult world. They're not going to take to it perfectly. They're not going to become, Captain America. He knew what he was doing. Superman, he knew what he was doing. You know what I'm saying by that? And I didn't want them to be anti-heroes or fuck-ups. This wasn't the Dortmunder gang or anything like that. But
they're learning.
They got in over their heads and they fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
They called up something that they couldn't put down, as I think they said in the Lovecraft story, the Whateleys. They were trying to do good. They thought they knew what they were doing, and Jack made a big mistake. And he's going to pay for. He's still paying for that. At the story View from the Hill, he's starting to be plagued by visions of. He saw the animals in that as they were,
the sheep,
as the dead figures that others couldn't. He's got some. There's been a psychic, some psychic holdover when he let the spirit of the child inside him to speak. And when things got screwed up, he got imprint. He can see the dead. He can do these things. He's much more sensitive than the others, possibly because of the ghost that was in his doghouse. Maybe that's how he was able to recognize the ghost in that story. At that story, I didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know we were having a. In that story, he actually can understand human speech.
Well, one of the things that you're alluding to here is the fact that all of these Beast of Burden stories, these shorter stories, are interconnected. Sometimes subtly, sometimes a little more directly.
Sure.
But at the same time, they're definitely standalone. I think that anyone could pick up any of these Beast of Burden narratives and understand and appreciate what's going on. But looking at everything as a whole, you can see how things are interconnected and how, even fairly early in your stories, you guys are starting to set up a longer issue. I mean, for instance, I'm thinking about the Wise Dog, and by the way, I'm a big fan of Old English Sheepdog, so I'm glad that the sheepdog is the wise one, although mine is a goofball. But
don't get too attached to him.
Ouch!
Oh God,
Gandalf usually never makes it through the end of a story.
Okay.
Of a book, you know what I mean?
See, I can't go on now with what I was about to say because now I'm depressed. But
don't worry. Look, I know what happens to all the characters, and I once was in traffic coming home, and I got so fucking upset because of something that I was working on, and I'm like, this is, we didn't pick animals because it's easy to get emotional over them. It definitely is. I've seen reviews that say, "Oh, it's almost a cheap." There were people who said about the Lost story that it was kind of cheap because it's very easy to upset people by showing dead animals, and I don't know what I can't say anything to that. That's not the point of the story. It was not to show. I mean, we pulled back. There is no. You don't see anything the teenager did. In fact, there were a lot of people who missed the signs of the extent of his career torturing animals because they were all over his closet. That scene where the dogs attack him in the closet, you can see all his trophies. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to, this wasn't, we weren't doing Maniac with animals, The first story had animals in it, and then we had more ideas. So that's our characters, So yeah, bad things are happening to these animals because, like in Watership Down, bad things happen to animals that fight. I mean, it's all claw, bite. It's somebody's going to die. It's not. We don't want it to be gratuitous, and we don't want to jerk people around. But you can't have 12 dogs and cats run out every night against demons and witches and monsters and come home.
Yeah.
Every night. It's a war in this little town, and we're gonna lose some of the cast by the time we wrap up this story. I don't want to do it now. Sarah and Jill talked me out of killing Ace, and it made for a very good story. And the thing is, you have these accidents. The first story we had the Wise Dogs. It turned into the Society and all that. And there were certain things that you look at it and you can tell that Jack can understand the animal psychologist in the panel where they take him there because he's not sleeping, his family. And we dropped that. That's the only time that he does that. It's kind of like, it did not work. If they could understand people, then they would get information very easily. It's very hard to write the book in many ways because the characters don't have thumbs. They don't use firearms. They can't get on the internet. They can't drive anywhere. They can't open doors. They can't open cans. There's the scene in A Dog and His Boy where the newspaper hits Pugs in the face, and you can see that it says two hikers slain in the woods, and it's a telegraph that the kid's a werewolf. Because of course the kid's a werewolf. There are a lot of people who go, "Oh, it was easy to figure that out." We didn't care that you figured that out. Part of the point of that story was that it was a tragedy. The dogs had no idea that he was a werewolf. The reader does know, and the reader knows that this is not going anywhere good. And when that newspaper hits Pugs, part of it is that we're telegraphing it, and part of it is, isn't it depressing that the information is right in front of them?
And they can't.
But they can't read. Yeah. If they could read the newspaper, they'd go, "Oh, this kid did this." So we have to skirt that at we have to get around that at every plot point. And I fucking can't stand it half the time because how do you get them in through a door? In the new issue, we have to show them getting into a door. And they don't have Dimphna, and Dimphna can't make things happen. If there's a fire, she can make the fire do things. She can't make fire. We don't want the power set of these characters to be superhero-like. There's only so much that they can do. Otherwise, they'll solve everything very quickly. In the Hellboy crossover, you could see what would happen if one of them really had power. They beat the living shit out of the enemy.
Yeah.
And that's what. And then the sadness there is that Hellboy leaves with a book of clues in his pocket and goes back to his world. I constantly like playing with that, and I've always been a fan of continuity to a point. I don't think continuity should strangle the book. But right from the beginning, we knew when I had Dimphna escape from the end of that second story because I thought she was kind of neat. And since her witch's coven bites the bullet, buys the farm, why didn't I keep this menace around? So we had her live, and then when we did the Book of the Dead, I was going to be called Lawn of the Dead, but Shaun of the Dead. I looked like I was carping on that because of my crazy fear that people are going to say I'm a plagiarist. So yeah, that one, Sleeping Dogs Lie, we brought her back trying to get revenge, and then she ends up gone, and then she's one of my favorite characters now. My daughter really likes her. We got a great fan letter from a little kid who wrote, "Dimphna is my hero," and drew it in the chat. And I'm like, "Why are you reading this book, kid? Do your parents love you?" This isn't fluffy time, But yeah, gosh, I'm really rambling. Sorry, but it's just I love this book. I'm so happy we have another one coming out. We have 2 more scripts. Jill has started layouts. It was supposed to be a mini series, but the schedule went crazy. It went to heck. So the next 2, again, continuity. All this stuff's happening in this town. I mean, one of the reasons I stopped watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer was that, there was an episode that made me laugh too much with this blue guy coming out of a coffin in the mall or something, and this big monster comes out of a thing and kills everybody in the mall. All right. Well, this set that was supposed to be a mall, it looked hilarious. Right. So, and the next day, there's 40 fucking people not in town anymore, and that nobody cares. It's just business as usual. And some kid became invisible and somebody fell down. There's 800 people dead or something in the first season or something crazy. Robot man falls down the stairs, this one, that one. Teachers are missing. I mean, and people sometimes once in a while goes, "Oh, the air is different here," or whatever the fuck. And then the mayor is, I guess, covering it up. But it just didn't work because, first of all, the mall was emptied of humans. And it's not a huge town. And you can say that people are forgetful, right? But, okay, let's say everybody was mind blanked by some fucking Hellmouth event or whatever. But you go home and there's a picture of your daughter on the mantle of your fireplace. Okay? The whole town has photos of these dead people. There's a history of these dead people. You can't just wave that away. And that's when, sometimes you go for a scene and you're like, maybe we shouldn't kill 40 people in the mall here. Okay? Because it opens us up to – it just becomes too ridiculous. It's what continuity and going for big scenes does to everything. Serial adventure. You open it up more and more, and then you have to make things crazier and crazier. So bank robberies can't be in your comics anymore because everything has to be the end of the world, or a civil war, or the end of the universe, or 5 universes, 20 universes. It's like pornography. Again, yeah. It's like pornography or drugs. You're taking heroin. Eventually, you need to up the dosage to get that same high. If people get bored watching 2 people have sex, you have to have 200 people have sex. Sometimes with one person. It's nuts. Where do you go from there? You paint yourself in corners. So the thing we're trying very hard to do with Beast is never let it get out of hand to the point where humans will come in and clean the place up. Because, when you have a character like Gandalf, or you have a character when I was a kid reading comics, you could tell that they had lots of problems with Thor and the Avengers because, the Beast and the Wasp and Captain America and Hawkeye are,
different level.
And then Thor comes down, taps somebody in the head and says, man, you guys suck. And goes back to Asgard, And so you had to have bigger, and then the Vision can turn it. So you had to have crazier people with crazier powers. And eventually you've got the Beyonder or some idiot like that. And it's out of control. So you have to gut the universe and start over again. Yeah. If you take it slower, I think you can build up. And with Beasts of Burden, what I realized at some point is we've had a man killed in the graveyard and eviscerated, and then there was a fire in the graveyard, and there's been vandalism, and there's been dead animals laying all over the place. That can still fall under weird shit's happening, but it's probably some of those heavy metal kids that go to the high school, But eventually you've got enough things happening. There's been murders in the woods, enough. The kid who was killing all the animals, he's explained away, but there's too much. People have to have noticed. So the 2 issues after this next one is basically dealing with the local sheriff is like, I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to call somebody. If we have wise dogs and we've talked about companions, then there's occult people out there, humans. So it's we're going to see what happens when they end up having to deal with humans for a sustained amount for a period of time. It doesn't end well.
Yeah.
But it answers the question: isn't anybody paying attention? And the way that I'm doing that, because the dogs don't know, is showing this bulletin board that this sheriff has on his wall, because they don't want people to be major characters in the book. We've tried to avoid that as much as possible, if you've noticed.
Right.
We didn't show their faces, I think, until until the witches, really, in the second story. But we try to keep people out of it. They're in cars. The guys who run over the zombies are in a sanitation truck. You don't see their owners' faces. It's like Peanuts.
It's like Peanuts. So yeah, it's just
yeah. And sometimes we have to do it. There's the villain, the agency of the evil there is a human agency there. It's not, the rats are just not enough of a menace. Rats, crows only go so far. But the voice in the sewers belongs to a person of some sort. And we're building up to this, it's not Dr. Doom or the Kingpin, so it's not a big reveal. It's
Galactus.
It's not, with a G on his belt.
Yeah.
It's not Judge Crater or Amelia Earhart, so you're not going to know who this person is, but it should still be interesting.
Norman Osborn.
We're putting together the backstory, and in these issues we show the sheriff has this board that has all of the newspaper articles that we've seen in the past, the killings in the woods, the kid who was murdered by dogs. They're all tacked up with all these other things and these complaints from citizens about nothing being done about basically the quality of life, they feel there's a rat infestation in town, but they don't know the half of it, obviously. So I'm trying to balance these 2 worlds. We discussed earlier on that people aren't paying attention because they're always on their phones and they're not looking at what their pets are doing, and that's why we showed them they're walking through town and nobody notices them. But it is a small town, and it's a people travel to work. It's a commuter town. So most people aren't even in the town during the day, and they're asleep at night. So, I mean, because you have to contrive something. I mean, I understand why Buffy has to explain. It has to keep going because it doesn't want to push it too far. And everybody screws up. I mean, I'm no genius. I'm not Joss Whedon. I don't have I'm not saying he's a genius, but I don't have a successful track record of making people happy. You know?
I don't know
and he does. But you know what I'm saying? On a mass level. So it's like, it's very easy for me to say, if I was running a show like that, I'm sure I would have run it into the ground, because I would have killed off Xander immediately. You know, I would say, you know what? This romance sucks. We're going to have more stuff with Giles and adults, and we're going to have canceled. Because it's annoying. Buffy's an annoying character. I don't care about her at all. I liked Oz and Willow. They didn't know what to do with them. So, you're this and you're that. And, when you start making characters what they're not, obviously not, it's a bad sign. Mm-hmm. When you have to give them more powers all the time, or, I had an aunt I never knew that I had. I never had an aunt too. She's a witch, and she has 4 arms, and she can help us or hurt us. You know what I mean? That's why you should. I don't know. What am I talking about? I'm a dick. Sorry. I think too much about this stuff. I worry that it's going to all fall. I always worry. I have so many files of notes on Beast because I'm always terrified that it's like I'm spinning plates and I'm going to drop them all.
But it's good to hear that we have future Beast stories ahead.
We have a lot of them.
Good.
I hope they happen. It's hard. The two sides of the sword is that Jill's the best and Jill is busy, and watercolor is incredibly time consuming. So even when her schedule's open, these pages she can't do more than a page a day, and I'm a very, very slow writer. I'm trying to get exactly, especially if I'm asking her to do. Invisible. How do you paint invisible monsters and not? That was, that issue is a very simple issue. I don't know why the hell it won an Eisner. I mean, it's a good book. It's not the greatest thing ever made. We won Eisners for 2 stories. That's really nice. They're like our 2 weakest stories. I can tell you what. The weakest story is, forget about it. The weakest story is the Graveyard one. It just didn't come together the way I wanted it to, but that happens.
Was that Grave Happenings?
Yeah. I needed more. I always needed more pages. I always need more pages. I always want more pages. And Jill did it. Jill opened it up, and we got an extra page. Dark Horse has been really cool. They let us get an extra page. And Jill, I don't get paid for that, but Jill has to be. It's her time. And I'm imposing on her. I'm imposing on them because Beast takes so long for us to get to the book stage, and the books are what actually break even and succeed. Hopefully,
yeah.
I mean, the Eltingville issues sold terribly. There's just no real market for that stuff. As an editor at Dark Horse told me, the comics are ads for the books. It's it keeps the artists and writers alive while they make these things. I mean, in a perfect world, everybody would be working on books, and we'd drop this weekly craziness, which has us still acting like it's the 80s with the early direct market, and it's just not working. People are buying books; they're not buying the comics. Beast has sold terribly, relatively. We have never been able to break 10,000, and I accept the blame at this point because of the schedule. But when we put out the miniseries and it was on the cover of previews. That means every retailer, every hobby store saw that cover. Mm-hmm. And I was joking, saying, I've said this before, I joked, now retailers are going to have to work hard to pretend they didn't see our book. And we still couldn't break 10,000 with the cover, or back cover, I'm sure it was, and with a Mignola quote, and with an Eisner. None of this matters, really, if the retailers don't care. And at this point, we're lucky that we still have kept our audience, because our schedule is ridiculous. I think Big Numbers is going to have an issue out before we I can't remember the name of that thing. Radio. What was that? Sonic. Going back a ways.
Oh, which one is?
The one that never finished that Mike Barron did. Sonic Reducer.
Oh, not Santa's Rock.
Audio Big Dynamites. I mean, I turned in late scripts. Jill got really hung up. The new issue looks terrific. I hope people like it. That's the other thing. I get real flop sweat because if it takes this long to put an issue out, I want that issue to be. Sarah's always telling me that my problem is I think every comic is a graphic novel, and it's 20 pages, 22 pages, 23 when I goof up and beg for that extra page or two. But I try to put in a whole story. Like you said, every issue of Beasts of Burden to this point, you can pick it up. You might not know exactly who the players are. A lot of people didn't know who the characters' names were at first, and they were annoyed by that. And I tell them, there's a reason we picked these breeds. So you don't know Ace's name, but he's the husky always.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know their names. They just go, and I don't like having people walk up and do the Jim Shooter stuff, I am Ace.
Except Pugs. Everybody can remember Pugs.
Oh, yeah. Plus, am I still here?
Yes.
Yep. I dropped the thingy. Plus, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
he's our Ben Grimm, except he has no power whatsoever.
The anti-Grimm.
One time he did something right, nothing came of it. Well, actually, something did come of it. But the only time he ever did anything right was when he pissed on something.
Yeah, he peed. Yeah, I appreciated that.
Yeah, he fucked up a spell, which I just thought that was hilarious. I was very happy about that bit of business. And then we stole his victory away from him. He got the book. That book is the villain's little one of the villain's little cult books. And if they were able to have Dimfno or Hellboy read that to them, they go, "We know what to do," and they'll never know what to do because that book is long gone into Mike Mignola's universe. I tried to. I didn't really, but I thought it would have been funny if Hellboy was sucked back into his dimension or world with Pugs in his pocket still, and he was forced to walk around with this asshole dog all the time because I love the way he looked. I love the way Mignola drew it. I love the way Jill did it. I really wish Beast of Burden was popular enough to warrant us making a Hellboy statue with the animals around him.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
With the cats on him and below him. I mean, you see, that's a big thing in my career. I don't know how to make things that are. I joke with people, you have to make characters that people can cosplay or make lots of toys out of, and I haven't done either, really. Nobody wants to cosplay as the Eltingville Club. I don't blame them. You can't cosplay really as the Beasts of Burden crew. You can't make good toys out of them because they're just animals. They don't have cool stuff. Dimfna maybe, because she's stylized and has the jewel. She used to have the pendant, but she's also a black cat, which people just like black cats. But we can't really make Beasts of Burden statues or toys of it. It's just Schleich toys,
Well, you don't have that problem with Milk and Cheese because the marketing potential there seems to me almost infinite.
No, I think that evaporated like in 2002.
Really?
I'm talking to Dark Horse about maybe. Is there anything we can do with them? I mean, I never made anything with them to make money. I just loved it when we got to make stuff.
My refrigerator still has my Milk and Cheese magnets on it right this minute.
That's neat. I have the prototype on my computer right now. It's the Bowen. I mean, it was just, as a fan, it was great because also I didn't have to spend any money on it. We made some beer glasses and they were really.
I wish I had those.
They were really hard to ship, and we were taking them to conventions in our luggage, and it was just crazy. And it's nice when somebody will take up the slack and go, "We'll make the stuff." But Milk and Cheese can only really be Milk and Cheese. They don't have accessories other than bottles and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm going to see stealth Milk and Cheese,
tiny bottles.
Or werewolf milk. I mean, if we could get, I wouldn't want to do the, I hate when they do things like Mr. Potato Head or Angry Birds, and they just gang up with everything. There's enough fucking Star Wars. I think they have the money. I think they're okay. I think they'll make movies. It's like always the same stuff, It's like that's what happens when you like things that fewer people like, You're not going to see a lot of people making old-time radio horror host statues or junk like that, or obscure monsters.
Well, what about more Milk and Cheese comics? Are we going to get more of those?
I don't know. I have a bunch of them that I started. I keep saying yes, but now I have no idea. I miss them. I like them. I still draw them once in a while I'm, if I'm, doodling on a pad. I have a lot of. You can't call them stories. That's the other problem. They don't have a story. When Milk and Cheese were more popular, and there were less comics out there, and the comics were getting thrown around in the 90s on animation studio desks and HBO and Comedy Central, and I'd get phone calls and things. I would always try to get them to put the offers in writing because they were so hilarious, because they were so wrong. Milk and Cheese would spar with their neighbor, and he could be a Chris Farley type, or even Chris Farley, and I'm like, first of all, no, they don't spar.
They destroy.
They destroy. Yeah, that's the joke. It's one of the jokes. There's no stories. They don't have. It's 2 pages. We've never had an offer with them. Well, we had one, but I don't know what's going. I don't think it's going anywhere. We've never had an offer with them where somebody said, you know what, these things should be like a minute long, and they should just punch people in the face, have as many jokes as possible, just be crude and violent and stupid, and you should write them. And
interstitials.
But they were always, we can do a show, we can do a movie, we can do segments. They could be puppets for a kids show. That was a great one. That's
oh my God.
That was Nelvana, and that's how you know that they weren't reading it. That they were everybody was buying a couple of comics at Golden Apple, and having producers were having their readers read everything. Oh, I've seen this Milk and Cheese thing's written up in a bunch of things, and it was mentioned here. And Hate is at MTV. What's left? Reed Fleming is over there. Flaming Carrot is over there. You know what I mean? So somebody said, well, snap up something. Cartoonists are poor. Give them $12. Give them $12 and a Sharpie, and we'll have them. And they got a lot of people. But I didn't want to sell. They asked. They didn't. They just said, we buy it. You sign it over. We give you some money. We own it. We have the licensing rights. You don't write it. You're nobody. They didn't say it like that, but that's what the offers were, We didn't get an offer like the Turtles guys got, or Dan Clowes got, or Pete Bagg was MTV. They had him writing and working on his, because shouldn't the person who created the thing that you liked kind of have some input? The first thing they do is throw the guy off, or the woman off. They throw the creators off, which is hilarious, and then they do a book report based on your comic and get paid. And get paid more in one script than you get for your half your lifetime to make all this crap, and they blow through money. I mean, the Beast of Burden movie thing, they've blown through a lot of money. Oh my God, Jill and I haven't gotten that money. We got a decent amount. Dark Horse put together a deal that we were happy with, but the money that is made to fail in Hollywood is greater than the money that you can make succeeding in comics. It's changing, but I mean, I would not mind having Frank Miller's bank account, or Neil Gaiman's, or Alan Moore's, or something like that. That's never going to happen. But yeah, boy, did they! I mean, for a script that they that a company. I mean, this is for everything. We've worked on it. I mean, we got paid ridiculous money to write a 2-minute sequence for the Cable Ace Awards back in the day for Space Ghost, and they ended up cutting it down to 40 seconds and threw out most of the stuff that we did. And we got paid more money than, I would make on 3 comics of my own. It's just a different planet. Of course, the shows that we get jobs on, we generally don't make great money. It's because, Yo Gabba Gabba was kids' TV, and Space Ghost was late night. It was barely qualified as being on TV back in the day. A lot of people wasn't on. I mean, I love that show, but a lot of people
that was a lot of fun.
Would just scratch their heads at that show, especially the later Crazy episode. When it got more psychedelic and non sequitur filled. Our stuff's very mundane compared to what came later.
My kids grew up watching those Space Ghost cartoons.
That's nice.
I mean, yours. I mean, not the original.
Well, they're not mine. They're not ours.
Right. But the ones that you have.
Yeah, we had. That was a pip. I miss Zorak the way that I miss Milk and Cheese sometimes. I am fond of that character. I am unduly fond of Zorak. He is just so cute.
We need a Dorkin 2-in-1 or a Dorkin team up with Zorak and Milk and Cheese.
No, I turned down the Hellboy team up on Beast of Burden the first time it was brought up. I'm very skeptical of things like that because they're in comics, especially they're such a cash grab. Throw Batman to it. I mean, some of them are so hilarious.
Archie and the Punisher.
Yeah, that's Archie. Archie pretty much got back into the direct market. Well, they never were in the direct market much, but Archie has become a direct market darling from stunts like Let's kill Archie. Let's have a black person move in.
Archie and Kiss.
With Kiss, Now Sharknado.
Let's have a gay person in Riverdale, and they let's have Kiss. I mean, it was really kind of creepy because I felt I overthink everything, and I'm like, they're reducing homosexuality and gender and race equality to a stunt like having Kiss or a zombie show up.
Yeah.
But everybody loves it, right? And Archie and Predators. I mean, whoa! The Hellboy thing was tough because when they first said it, I said, "Well, that just makes no sense." And Jill and Sarah and Scott, they were all like, make it work. And I'm like, no, it doesn't make any sense. It's cheap, and it would look stupid. And then I came up with an idea, and I was like, that's the thing that happens a lot for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. You think something is absolutely the stupidest idea you ever heard, and I didn't think was the stupidest thing I ever heard that was pitched at me was Popeye meets Mars Attacks. It was pitched to me to write it, and it was pitched. I'll probably have the letter somewhere as, look, this is going to sound really stupid. But we're doing, IDW was doing a whole crossover.
Oh yeah, that was a few years ago that they did that.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm laughing as I'm reading this guy's email because it was cool. He wasn't denigrating it and everything. He was just saying this is going to sound crazy. But again, when people ask me what is Beasts of Burden about, or what is Milk and Cheese about, I have to sit there with a straight face and go, it's cats and dogs fighting the supernatural, or it's dairy products that drink and hit people. That's not brilliant. You know what I mean? I mean, that's
but it works.
Well, the thing is, I mean, most things when you break it down sound stupid in comics or genre or almost anything. I mean, Moby Dick sounds stupid. You know what I mean? It's like it has to. You have to avoid some realism. But it's how do you carry it off? Do you excite people enough that they don't care? Do you play with the idea that this is all ridiculous, which is a very people like to do too much, I think, because the self-aware thing is played out. I mean, a little bit of it is great, a lot of it is
annoying.
Is Wes Craven, and So I mean, but the funny thing was, I told the guy I really don't think I want to write Popeye versus Mars Attacks. And the funny thing is, I'm a huge Popeye fan. I'm a huge Thimble Theater era Popeye fan. And I love the Max Fleischer cartoons, but I love Segar's Popeye. I mean, love it. I would love to do – I don't really have a dream job. Like, you get asked a lot, what comic would you want to take over or what superhero would you want to take over? And even though I'm very, very down on modern stuff, there's still stuff that I would love to do. If, I would love to write Howard the Duck or – I love the Fantastic Four, things like that. I don't sit around coming up with stories, but every once in a while, you're in the shower and you go, oh, shit, I have a Fantastic Four story. That's useless. Because it's a Fantastic Four story, it can't be used for anything else. I can't cannibalize a lot of my stories because when I was growing up, Stan Lee always said you had to come up with a story that was specifically for Iron Man. If Human Torch can do it, then it's not an Iron Man story. And I believed him like a schmuck. Because, you know what I mean? It had to be inherently solved by Daredevil, not by Spider-Man. But now it's just, fight, fight, fight. There's a big blinding light. Next issue, buy more. There are no endings anymore. There's just funnels. This series funnels into the next series. So nobody has to – it's a great time to be in comics. You don't have to write endings for a lot of these stories. Because the ending is basically see what happens in 12 new comics. See what happens in 40 comics. Who's dead? Who cares? They're coming back.
It doesn't matter.
Buy more. I'm sure there's good work being done. There has to be. The law of averages, there is good comics being done at Marvel and DC. But I burnt out so long ago that it's hard to really know because there's always number 1 and 2. There's no number 65. Yeah. Which is a sign of
there's several number 1s over a year's period.
And there's, I thought when I was a kid there were 2 Spider-Man comics and Marvel Team Up. That was enough. That was more than enough. And Spidey Super Stories. which was cool to read, according to Easy Reader.
Easy Reader.
But now it's like, Spider-Man's on the Avengers now. I mean, it makes everything less exciting. Death is unexciting. Rape is a plot tool when you don't know how to make male characters cry. Which is just too creepy. Disemboweling is old hat. Killing a universe, old hat. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Once Wonder Dog eats the Wonder Twins, where do you go? You know what I mean? All the bad fan jokes and internet jokes and gags from your fanzines are now in the comics. Spider-Man's eye gets eaten. Peter Parker gets divorced by the devil to save a woman who should have died 50 years ago 8 times. I mean, the guy's never fucking had the balls to just go, look, Aunt May, the devil wants me to get divorced or he's going to kill you. Doesn't he know what she would say? She'd say, schmuck. I'm 80,000 years old.
Oh, Peter.
Life sucks. I almost married Dr. Octopus. That's how fucked up my life is. You're going to give up, and first of all, you're a superhero. You don't talk to the fucking devil. You don't bargain with the devil. Fuck you, Peter. She should have stabbed him to death. She should have poisoned him in whatever she made for him that night because he can't even make his own fucking meals. What a sad bastard. She go, Peter, I will poison you before I let you agree to anything the devil says. That would have been a good story. That would have been it.
So instead she marries J. Jonah Jameson's father.
No fucking way.
Makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
This?
Yes.
Holy shit. I know. I didn't know that.
Yes. So basically, Peter Parker is J. Jonah Jameson's stepbrother.
Ooh, so that you can have drama. You can have drama for 3 issues.
That's canon, man. That is totally canon.
It's amazing because the thing is, everything has to circle in on itself. I mean, you should have large casts that go in and out and flow in and out. I mean, it's not a sitcom. You can hire more than 4 people.
Oh, it kind of is.
Well, you know what I'm saying. It's not.
Yeah.
You don't have 3 cameras on half a set, a cutaway of a room.
Yeah, it's a big.
You can only afford 5 people. It's not an animated series where you can only have 9 voice actors and they can do 3 voices each. You can go in a that's the beautiful thing about comics. You want to draw every Skrull or every Roman centurion or everybody in a restaurant in a Tintin panel. You draw it, or you have your assistants draw it. That's the beautiful thing about comics is no budget. Whatever you can write and draw goes into the comic. Do it. But no, you constantly have to come circling right back to the same characters. And now Marvel and DC is in another corner these days because people can get better deals at Image and otherwise. So why create Hellboy or Saga use those characters? Why only Rob Liefeld took his characters and dumped them on Marvel? So it's kind of funny to see that the only real successful character that has come out of new character in quotes is Deadpool at Marvel and DC because Lobo never took off that way. I mean, I guess the Sandman. But he's based on other versions of Sandman.
Other versions, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Deadpool's Spider-Man and Wolverine. I mean, Liefeld, couldn't even be bothered to pick up a book to look at. But, but you know what I'm saying? Fuck it. He did it. Him and whoever wrote all the dialogue for Deadpool early on and set that character up, they made a character that is now one of the most successful movies for its budget ever. And right? R-rated. Who else has done that? We make fun of Rob Liefeld, but he could. You can't argue against that. Deadpool is Rob Liefeld. Maybe he's ripping off other characters, but nobody else is doing that at the company. No. They're only doing She-Hulk, Red She-Hulk, versions of Gwenpool, different Captain Marvels, because nobody will give them anything new. They're not creating a spate of villains the way Kirby. I mean, Kirby stopped creating characters at one point, if I understand correctly, when the Silver Surfer kind of got jerked away from him, what he wanted to do. He just said, I give up. I'll just keep. Yeah. That's what happened when there's a point in the Fantastic Four where it starts treading water before Kirby leaves. And they just keep fighting the Mole Man and the Skrulls. And because he's Kirby, he still throws in crazy things like Torgo, the Man Machine, or whatever the fuck. He's not. There's that stretch from like the 80s to 104 or whatever. He's not.
That's really treading.
They're fighting people that they've fought many times before, and you can tell. But that's the way. And then Roy Thomas and all those folks came in, and they had all their kind of like they were so happy to be in comics, and they just created a ton of stuff in the 70s. And as things go on, and as creators' rights becomes an issue, people start, creating less standalone characters and villains.
And more recreation.
Thanos is a rip of Darkseid, and he's become his own. You know what I'm saying? But he's become that's a 40-year-old character. Ultron's in the movie. He's Buscema and Thomas and Buscema. I mean, where are the new characters that are supposed to take them forward? That's dead. When they have to go back and bring back Jessica Jones, I mean, it's cool that they have this massive pool of characters, but it's still, these are B and C listers, and there's only so much they can do with Ant-Man. I mean, Ant-Man was a joke on Saturday Night Live. Now Ant-Man is a successful movie. That's when you know the fucking world's changed.
You go from Garrett Morris to
right. I'm Ant-Man to I'm Ant-Man. Yeah. And people go, shit, it's Ant-Man. I'm paying money to see Ant-Man. I'm going to give fucking dollars to Ant-Man. Fucking Ant-Man. And of course DC can't get Wonder Woman going because what is she? She's just Xena for like superheroes. Because Xena's Wonder Woman. But no, they can't get that of Ant-Man. We're going to do a Justice League movie. Ant-Man. Beat you. They'll have fucking J. Jonah Jameson will have his own fucking series before DC gets its head out of its ass. They've always seemed better on television, DC characters anyway. I don't know what it is, but anyway. We could talk 17 hours about my thoughts on Marvel DC characters. And it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. But really, their talent, their character pool is shot. It's, what is it, 80 years for DC? 70-something years? 75 years plus?
Yeah.
Marvel is 50? I mean...
It's coming up on 80.
Bless them for how long they've been able to spin this stuff. And bless anybody who can make good stories out of it. It is not easy. It's not easy to do it with new characters. It's not easy to do... It's really hard to do it with old characters. And when all you can really do is shuffle the deck chairs because nobody is going to give them a Silver Surfer. You know? Nobody in their right mind. Liefeld might be the last... It's a character nobody cares about, nobody does anything with. But I did a book called Fight Man for them.
Right.
I would never have done that book years afterwards because I wouldn't have given them Fight Man. Not that Fight Man's a great character, not that Fight Man's great. Nobody even fucking killed him in any of those Civil War. They haven't even, like... I keep expecting Fight Man to show up in a comic with his guts blown out. You know what I mean? Like, oh, who's that asshole? I don't know. But he's not even been in the background dead with his head off. He doesn't even have one fan who wants to kill him at Marvel. You know, he only came back because I got to bring him back once in Agent X, and one of the villains from the Agent X run ends up in a Howard Chaykin comic. Somebody emailed me about this. A guy called Dr. Orangutan. Now, true, when you're doing Nazi
concept.
When you're doing Dr. Orangutan, I love creating villains. I created like 60 villains for those Fight Man comics and Agent X comics. Black Lung, the Malady Man. Punch Drunk, the boxer who has to get drunk to hit people hard. There was a Slap Happy, the clown. There was a lot. The funny thing is they wouldn't let me put Stiltman in those scenes. They would not let me put Marvel villains in there. I wanted to have a lot of Marvel villains in this town that was controlled by criminal organizations, and they put a hit on. Oh, whatever. But yeah, isn't that funny? Stiltman was too cool for them. And they didn't want me to make fun of Fight Man. Man. But Fight Man is a character that I don't own. My reasoning at the time was I was having fun. I was trying to get my foot in the door. The thing was a joke in the first place that I made when I was at a lunch at Marvel. Kevin McGuire was at the table, and he was Kevin's very talented. I got to work with him once on a Captain America thing, and at the time he was doing the Justice League stuff. So, riding high. And as a joke, I told him that I could get him some work. I knew his career was, was a mess. And, I was the guy who couldn't get any jobs. I was a nobody. So the joke was, I was like, I got a character I want you to draw for me because I think I can do things for you. And he goes, okay, what's his name? And I said, Fight Man. I just made it up. And he says, and it was perfect because he goes, what does he do? Because back then, remember that's how we used to talk at conventions? Kids would go, I got a character. They'd come up to, they go, I got a great character. What does he do? What are his powers? And it's funny when you think about it, because they always said, what are his powers?
Yeah.
Nobody ever said, what are their powers? Because you knew it wasn't a girl. But that's all you wanted to know. You didn't want to know the story. You just, what does he do? Well, he has flight, and he can punch through things. You know, that's all. It was all champions and D&D type stuff. He was powers. But he said, so I said, his name is Fight Man. People, you know, 2 people laughed. And he goes, what does he do? And I said, he fights, man. and that got like 4 people laughing. And then I put Fight Man, and I kept pushing Fight Man as a joke. And Fabian Nicieza got me Fight Man. So, you know, come on, how could I not do Fight Man? I put him in the backs of stuff, and then and Bill and Ted, and I got him. Also, he was a joke on those kinds of comics. So for him to come out from a Marvel made the joke better. I was never going to do Fight Man on my own. I would never have done a Fight Man comic at SLG or for myself. I mean, in a lot of ways, Fight Man is a cleaned up dickwad. The porno comic that I did for Penthouse Hot Talk and then collected with new stuff. I mean, it was the same kind of design. I only had one design, Kid Blast Off, Fight Man. That was the one design I had back then, I guess. But I mean, if something happened with Fight Man, I wouldn't get any of it. You know, I'd get a pittance. So, well, you know, that really hurts when you have a company that's based on ideas and you cut off a source of ideas.
Right.
Of course, you're going to be rebooting and having Aunt May marry J. Jonah Jameson. What else are you going to do? And you can make money just creating a newspaper man or a cop. You know, if Len Wein puts a cop in Batman and that guy gets into the first Tim Burton movie and he gets a check, you're going to create cops and newspaper men. You're not going to create Hellboy or Atomic Robo or name the Goon. You're not going to do that at Marvel or DC. You're not going to take your kid's sketchbook drawings. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is what a lot of characters are. Nova and things like that. I mean, even the goofiest characters are being merchandised and turned into things. People want to own their stuff these days, generally. And how do you generate new ideas at those companies? And that makes things moribund. And I'm not even making fun of them to be pissy. It's just the truth. I mean, look at Image's share of sales, and their piece of the pie is growing, and DC has been getting kicked around really badly lately.
Yeah. The last numbers I saw for January, DC was like not looking good.
Yeah, well, January numbers are bad anyhow.
Yeah, it's bad anyway, but you still want to have the best of the bad numbers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you look at DC, DC has kept. They have 3 people, and I'm not even attacking them personally. I don't like Dan Didio, but I really don't. And I mean, for personal reasons as well as professional reasons. And why do you need 3 people to maintain the number 2 position? You know, great job staying in second place all this time and rebooting 3 or 4 times. I mean, I don't want anybody to lose their job. In fact, nobody loses their job in comics. They all come back. I mean...
kind of like the superheroes.
Well, the guy from...
They never die. They just keep coming back.
Impermanent.
Who's the other guy who's at Marvel? The guy who... Bob... No, I don't remember his name, but he was a Marvel guy during the Marvel collapse. So it's like, let's hire that guy because we're friends with him. Bob Harris. And I'm like, what are the credentials of continuing to hire somebody who, I oversaw the collapse of Marvel, and I was there for this eventual fall, and I was there for this disaster, and I was there for the Clone Wars, and holy crap, because it's a small pool.
Yeah.
Who comes into comics except fans and movie directors and rock stars and wrestling?
Yeah.
Fans too. It's a really weird industry, and I don't know how I got on this subject, but it could be because my wife will not talk about comics to me.
So we're your outlet.
No friends, and I just work and listen to music and old radio shows and wonder where it all went wrong. But here's the thing: as Tom Spurgeon knows, and some of my friends, unfortunately, I can talk comics I can go 40 hours. I just somehow, when I talk about comics, like I get extra battery packs. I don't know what time it is. I don't eat comics. I am definitely one of the damned.
Well, Evan, I can tell you right now that you have a place in the comics alternative history
I was
for
say.
the longest interview we have ever conducted.
Yeah. Well, at least I try not to be boring.
Oh, you're definitely not boring.
No. I'm not smart, but I'm not boring. Nobody's ever said my comics were boring. They've said a lot of nasty stuff, but they didn't say I didn't try, and they didn't say they're not boring, and that I didn't put things in there. But I think your question was milk and cheese. Yeah, at least I remember.
Yes, you do. You do. You got back around to milk and cheese.
I have a bunch of strips started, just never had a place to put them. Like I said, there's no deadline. There's no Dark Horse Presents that I can do one page for. Everything's 8 pages, There's no Oni double feature. There's no Epic Light. I mean, losing Deadline, that was where I generated a lot of milk and cheese stuff. I loved working for Deadline. The pay was crap. The people were great. I did a few conventions over there and got to meet everybody from Deadline. I was a big fan of the magazine. Getting in was other than Instant Piano, the closest thing I had to being part of something, that felt like not a movement necessarily. In England, I bet it was more because, the influence of Tank Girl and a lot of those comics was clearly felt there in the rave culture and the music scene. And people were putting Tank Girl on flyers, and you had Philip Bond, you had Glenn Dillon. I mean, Shaky Kane, you had, Rachel Ball. There were amazing people over there. Nick Abadzis, John McCrae started in there. Being the token American was a very important thing to me. And I'm still really happy about that. And it killed me when things got to the point where I couldn't contribute new material and they were reprinting my stuff. It was great, but that I was able to still stay in the magazine. But that's where the majority of the milk and cheese strips came from, doing one every month. And now nobody online wants to pay for anything. So it's not like, you can, at least not me. And there are no anthologies in comics anymore. There's different anthologies. There are no paying anthologies or regular. There's no Negative Burn, A1, all those more mainstream, allowing humor in. There's a lot of anthologies now, but they're more like collectives.
And you don't think it could fit into Dark Horse Presents at all?
It's been in Dark Horse Presents, but it's not a regular source.
Right. But I mean, like the new incarnation of Dark Horse Presents, because it's shorter, this latest, or I guess the most recent volume. And you were mentioning that with just a couple, right? But just with a couple of pages, though.
Right.
But they will.
You don't understand, Derek. That thing is booked until its next cancellation.
Wow.
And it gets restarted again. There's a ton of they are starting a lot of series and people off in there. Okay. It's a jumping point. It's a talent showcase. It's a place for Beasts of Burden to go back into when we don't have a full thing, or you know what I mean. But it was 80 pages. It was great. I've been in every iteration of Dark Horse Presents there is. I was in the first run a few times with Milk and Cheese and Hectic Planet. I was in the second run. I did 2 jobs for the online MySpace Dark Horse Presents.
Wow.
I did something for the new launch, the one that's running right now.
Right.
I did some House of Fun stuff. I would love to be able to do. I'm not as fast as I used to be. My drawing arm is shot, so I'm doing very little drawing these days until I get that taken care of, which I'm doing a bad job of. And it would be great if there was an anthology out there, but it's not a moneymaker. Anthologies were never good moneymakers, but they used to at least break even. And, the anthologies we have now is, is usually a group, an art collective, or it's based on, stories based on Peanuts, stories based on Hellboy, stories based on, I'm doing something for the Attack on Titan book. That's the kind of anthology that pays. Star Wars stories or stories, and Chris Duffy is doing fairy tale books and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't, but I mean, and a lot of people are doing stuff like that. But there's not even something like Raw for as far as that end goes. I mean, people are basically putting their stuff up on the web. That's a great place. I mean, that's where Kate Beaton put up her strips. You don't need an anthology if you're starting out. I'm an old fart who is a bit of a dinosaur, and I'm used to print. Sarah and I are doing something now for the Stela app, so that's like my first real digital job.
Yeah, I just saw it. That's kind of that's a Lovecraft thing, also, right? Calla Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
There's just that one chapter up so far, right?
Right. It's a preview. We should be launching a couple of months. We're writing episode 6, and Aaron and Mario, I think, just finished up. I think 2 is. I think Sarah's downstairs right now finishing up. Editorial work on the second chapter, marrying the lettering and the inking, doing magic stuff on the magic screen. I'm a Photoshop guy. I've just learned how to scan stuff. I'm scanning. Oh, I almost said something I'm not supposed to say about a future project, but I think you'll like it. I've learned in the last couple of years to scan things finally and to rotate the cameras. I'm terrible at this stuff. Very terrible.
Welcome to the 1990s.
You're not kidding. You're not, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's just, where's my Super 8 camera? Honestly, I just threw that thing out a few years ago. I am not good at the online stuff. I have an 11-year-old daughter who laughs at me sitcom style. Oh, Dad, you don't know how to do anything. What's an app? I don't know, And so yeah, we're doing something for an app. That's a horror series, and we're doing that. We got a team on that. Aaron Humiston and Mario Gonzalez. Excuse me for not knowing people's names, but it's just been first names, and it's been we just put the team together. We didn't think we were going to need a colorist. Sarah was going to do the colorist, but we hired Bill Mudrin for the team. Nate Picos of Blambot is doing the lettering. And Mario is a cartoonist in Mexico who we hired to ink. Aaron Humiston, who is a Mexican cartoonist in America. American? God, we're a bit of a Noah's Ark of types here. I'm the Jew, so I feel guilty that I can't get everybody's name right. But this is the first time that I've ever worked on a creator-owned thing with a team. It's Sarah Sarah put this idea together, and we ended up pitching it like the next day and got approved. And it's been really interesting to create something on the go rather than go back to the files, which is what I've been trying to do. But my OCD, my files are so vast and overwritten that I can't make heads or tails of what material I should keep, and I just sit there stunned. So the thing that I was going to pitch to Stela when they approached us, they accepted it, but I realized it wasn't right. And Sarah I had the Lovecraft stuff all over the house because of the Peanuts Treasury job. The tribute job that we did for Boom, which I wrote a Lovecraft Peanuts mashup that explained why Peanuts is as bizarre as it is, and the cosmic horror of Charlie Brown and the town with no name and no parents, and a dog who has a non-Euclidean doghouse, and a book collection. And what is he writing? And I found places for so much mythos stuff to fit Peanuts that we just ran with it. The King in Yellow and all that stuff. And I wish I could have done 40 pages of that damn thing, because I never got to have Linus and Lucy recognized as the Whateleys, that as a thought was their father, and that's why one of them is preternaturally strong and one of them is preternaturally smart, because they're mutants. I mean, because they grew up. Of course. They grow up really quick to get to the same size as Charlie. Them and Schroeder, who is, of course, playing the music of Eric Zahn on his piano instead and driving people crazy and making them sick. And Shermie is the keeper of the yellow sign, and that's why he disappears. And what was it? Violet and... Oh, God, what's the other? Violet and Patty have made the oath of Dagon, and that's why they fall out of the strip, because they have to stay in their house while they're going on to the third oath and become deep ones.
Damn, I'm a huge Peanuts fan, and I just have not picked up that book yet, and now I must.
Get it cheap. It's a good book, but, this is the days of Amazon. Get it cheap. It's a good book. It's a fun book. There's some cool stuff in there. I was very happy with the story. Derek Charm did the artwork for him. I was not familiar with his work. I met him at the New York Con last year, and I told him, I was like, it goes from the 50s up to the present. The style changes a little bit. And it's all is it an epistolary? Is that the right word for a story that's written?
Letter-based,
Letter-based, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's because so many of the mythos stories are some ding-dong writing about how they're going insane and going to die, and somehow they keep writing.
Yeah.
Charlie Brown even says, "Why am I still writing?" But it's him writing letters to his pen pal and about.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
town.
Beautiful.
It's not brilliant. It's good though.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But and I was so into. I've been like I said, I was so stupid for the Lovecraft stuff that all the reference material was sitting around, and my daughter, she hasn't read any of it, but I have the little Cthulhu pop, and I'm always talking about the monsters, and she's interested. She reads a lot of YA stuff and genre stuff and lots of comics, and she knows who Cthulhu is from Scribblenauts, because Cthulhu is like just everywhere. And we have a stuffed Cthulhu that I got, the Toy Vault one years ago. So and she loves that. When she was a baby, she really liked that. I was going to get rid of it, but she dug it because
that's conditioning.
So she noticed the genealogy that Lovecraft wrote in a letter. It's in the annotated Lovecraft book that came out, which is really cool. Sarah and Emily got it for me for Christmas, I think 2 years back. And I had it open, and the genealogy was in there that showed. It's so stupid. It's like the thing I loved about the Lovecraft group is that they're such fanboys.
Totally.
They're writing letters to each other going, okay, so the nameless mist is the grandfather of Azathoth. I don't remember, but all these ding-dong things. At the end of it is Lovecraft on one side and Clark Ashton Smith are descendants of these ding-dongs that you can't pronounce their names. Which I call them ding-dongs, which means that S.T. Joshi thinks I'm a moron, I'm sure, if he actually did listen to me. And if anybody knows who that is...
I know who that is.
They're as much of a geek as I am, and maybe. So she said, "Why are there no girls in the genealogy?" My daughter, she wanted to know, she was on a. She's wondering why so many of the girl protagonists in the books that she's taking out from the library, so many of them don't really have. She didn't use this phrase, but the agency that the boys do. The age-old thing. Yeah. And even when there are a lot of girls, they always have to have a romance. And she's fine with that, but she would like to see. She doesn't want to see. She's not into the romance stuff. She's at the age where it's icky.
Yeah.
She'd much rather see everybody disemboweled by vampires and werewolves. That's not icky,
That's perfectly understandable.
Right. That's my don't pay kid. So she saw that, and her and Sarah and her were talking about horror characters and stuff, and she was like, why isn't there like a Xena? And she's heard of Buffy, but she hasn't. That show would be too intense for her. Plus I won't let her watch it because the blue guy comes out and kills 40 people in the mall.
Back to the blue guy.
And Xander's a villain, just like J. Jonah Jameson, and put in jail or shot. Not only is he unfunny, but he keeps doing things that's bad for his so-called friends. Why don't they stab him to death? He needs to have Dr. Smith on their spaceship. Like that. It's like, sorry, somebody cut Xander's fucking head off. Accident. I thought he was a vampire. It can be done. But no, we got to have that idiot around for what? I don't know.
Comic.
Yeah. Should have lost more than an eye or something. Doesn't he? He's got a patch on. Is he a pirate now?
I think so.
He should be a fucking corpse, that character.
Pirate corpse. A pirate corpse.
There you go.
We're not talking about that, and that's not how you pronounce him. That's why I changed
I know.
Yeah.
But actually, that is a good way of wrapping up now, because we're coming back to one of your particular comics.
No, please stay with me.
We're not.
Real quick. That's where Calla Cthulhu came from. I didn't even know Calla was a real name. It's a flower name, and it's a girl's name. Sarah came up with that, and she came up with a character idea, and she has never read the Lovecraft stuff, so it's kind of like, it's an interesting way to go about it, because she's researching the Lovecraft stuff, but she's heard a lot of it through me, but she
hasn't lived it.
Never got into the mythos stuff. I mean, she's an avid reader. She's not a big horror reader, I guess, when I think about it, but science fiction, fantasy, history, above.
Especially when a frog eats Fluffy.
Shh. No, that's my daughter. She reads everything too. But they can't. We ended up kicking Calla into shape really quickly, because I kept saying, well, then Sarah would have a plot point, and I go, well, that would tie. It was just like and since I had the Peanuts timeline and the Lovecraft timeline out, because I was matching them. I had so much of that information at my fingertips, and I had some of it still in my head. I have a terrible memory. She would say, like, well, what if we had this? And I'd go, well, that would work with this. You know what I mean? I'd say, well, that would point towards Hastur, or this would be like this. And like, there's 3 things that Carcosa is, and it makes no fucking sense, so who cares? It ended up it's a comic, and it's an adventure comic, and it's not for Lovecraft purists, but I don't think I do anything for purists.
But for enthusiasts.
It's for people who are okay if, let's put it this way, if you like Lovecraft and you gnash your teeth whenever you think about Derleth, you'll probably hate this. It's not based on Derleth per se, but the characters have more agency, and people, obviously the whole idea of fighting back, like in the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, which I wish I got to play. I find it fascinating that the 2 times I tried to roll up a character, it took so long, we had to go home. It was
the night is over and haven't even started.
Game sounds great. It's 2 a.m. We've been Kolchak type report. I was like 18. I love this. Can we come back next week? No, I got to do something. Well, there goes Call of Cthulhu. The game drove me insane without even seeing an Elder God. You know, my head turned white. I looked like Whitey from the Bowery Boys just from rolling up a character. I was like, "Fuck this! I'm playing Champion." Bam, bam. But yeah, so it's a fun thing. It's not the characters don't have huge superpowers or anything crazy like that. Cthulhu's not even in it, really. He hovers above it all. But we're gonna have some neat stuff, and it's not good and evil in the Christian sense that Derleth wanted. It's not. We're not trying to make our claims on anything. It's definitely a much more cartoony, well, not cartoony, but it's a much more adventure-based type thing. And, it's not cosmic horror, really. It's just a fun adventure. It's like Beasts of Burden in a sense, you know.
So if people want to check this out, what you've been discussing, they'll have to download the Stela app?
Yeah, it's. I guess if you type in Stela.com, I have no idea. I'm the worst.
Stela, yeah.
Yeah, Stela. I didn't know how to pronounce it. I didn't realize it was Stela. I kept calling it Stella, and of course, then you want to scream it. Like,
yeah, no, I was about to say, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
A joke nobody likes, and everybody does. But it's up and running now. It's in Europe. It's in Canada. It debuted in Canada a few weeks before America, but it's a different comic every day, like 8 pages or more. There's like 7 series running right now. I think 1 ended, another one came in, and there's some really cool stuff on there. There's a wide range of stuff. I mean, right now there is nothing that I could call all ages, that I would call all ages, or on the art comic spectrum. I doubt there will be. It's definitely genre based, but there is a wide range of. There is a real diversity to approaches and people. There's a strip called 442 that's going to come soon, which is about the Japanese internment camps, which is being done all in color by a artist who does gallery work. I really like the first chapter of that. There's something called Gratnin, which stands for Gratuitous Ninja. I forget the artist's name right now, but it's about African American ninjas by the Gowanus in Brooklyn. It's so cool looking. It's really neat. It reminds me in a way of a Deadline strip, kind of almost like an 80s. The artist is throwing in. I think it's Ronald Wimberly.
Ronald Wimberly, yeah.
I had not known his stuff. He's using it scrolls down as opposed to sideways, and you continuously scroll down, and he's using like a scroll, and he is using the format in the most interesting way so far of anybody. He's the scroll. A lot of us are just doing straightforward comics, relying on the fact that the sequences are going to come up and then you'll get hit with stuff, but you don't have the page turn anymore. And I don't know how much I want to play with it, or Sarah and I want to play with. We were doing some effects and things, but the actual technology to do fades and some things like that didn't work out. Like we were trying to do flashbacks with a slight fade in, so that you would have an actual.
You can tell you're moving through time, sort of.
Right. That did not come off, so we had to drop that. It's been a real learning curve for everyone because we're working with a vertical format. It's going to be on some people will have small devices, so you want to make sure it's legible.
Right.
It's not the kind of thing that I would draw well for, because it would just look like spaghetti. But Gratnan is really, really cool. It's definitely the one that's taking the scrolling format for the farthest. There's painted approaches, there's straightforward comics, there's superheroes, there's parodies. It's really neat, and we know a bunch of the stuff that's going to be coming. There's recognized people doing work for it, people with a history of comics behind them, and then folks who are new, pretty much. It's interesting. Yeah, Stela.com, you can read previews of everything. The first chapter of everything is free. And you can see what you like and don't like for free, and it's an anthology, you know. Right. But when you debut, if your slot is, let's say, Monday, every Monday there'll be a new 8 pages, and because I'm involved, our first one is something like 12 pages.
Of course,
if you're counting like 4 panels as a page, like 4 that the 2x2 grid.
Yeah.
Except it is not a 2x2 grid. You could do that if you wanted to in a panel, but it would have to be small. But you could have long scrolls down. You could like show a map that kept going. It's interesting. I don't know how far it's the kind of thing like you'd wonder what Chris Ware would do.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see where you guys go with this, and maybe we can talk about it more next time. We're gonna have to have you back on.
Yeah,
because you didn't hear enough of me for 4 hours.
It's only been it's not quite 3. We haven't even reached Springsteen level yet.
Yeah,
next time.
He's not my boss.
So they can check out Calla Cthulhu on the Stela app.
First chapter,
right? And then the Eltingville Club is out. They can get it at the bookstores or at Amazon. And then you say coming out in May is the next installment of Beasts of Burden.
Yes, it's in the new Diamond previews for the direct market crowd. Right. It's 23 pages, I guess. It's a standalone. It's all cats.
It's all cats all the time.
If you're someone who's been reading the book. Thank you for sticking with us for the last 13 years of stop and go releases. But it's the answer to the musical question: where does Dimphna go at night when she leaves everyone every night to be by herself? And we'll get that over with. It was something.
Now we will go.
It was something planted a ways back when I realized something about the second story left things in the air. That basically she mentions that she lived in a house nearby, somewhere, that the witch's coven was nearby.
So filling out that narrative.
Yeah, we're going to fill that out and bring back one character who was seen very, very. Bring back the raccoon, Hoke.
Yeah.
The face biting. Not that he's ever done it, but he threatens to bite your face. Because how do you open a door if you can't turn the handle and you need hands? You get a raccoon. That was the that's the only way we can get them in the freaking house. And then hopefully 2 issues after that will be in production. The Bill and Ted collection,
right,
of everything I did on that series came out from Boom in February. That's a big, 200 and 300 pages. That's pretty crazy. Marie Severin and Stephen DeStefano ink, and so that's weird. Like, I'm old enough that my past is coming back to haunt me, as I've been saying. World's Funnest is a 60-page.
That comes out in April.
That'll be out in March in comic shops. It's going to come out with a lot of, I think, the Alan Grant. Who did the art on those? Was that Kevin O'Neill who did those Batman 80s books? Might have been Kevin O'Neill.
So,
yeah.
The real drug-addled one, I think, like, literally is part of the story, like, where, but all these Batmite stories are being anchored by World's Funnest. It's got a Brian Boland cover of a pile of dead Batman and Superman with 2 imps punching each other on the top. Very, very mature. Beautiful. And that'll be out from DC. Hopefully they'll send me. Marvel, there's of all things, a Deadpool omnibus coming out that I'll have Fightman and the Agent X stuff in. So that's a $125 book to get my garbage in.
That's good.
A book that I can't even afford my own book.
Wow.
Well, that's pretty typical, you know.
Yeah.
This is comics. This is the industry where you get nominated for an award and you can't afford to go to pick it up.
Pick it up.
Yeah. You know, I was once nominated for a NCS National Cartoonist Society Award, and I knew I wasn't going to win, but I wanted to desperately go because I have always wanted to go to an NCS banquet. Ever since I read about them as a kid, you know. Dress up like a goof and see all the syndicated cartoonists and mad artists and stuff like that. And I was nominated along with Amanda Connor, who's a friend of mine. And it would have been great to see her because they're in Florida now, her and Jimmy, and I don't see them. And it was great when I said, "Who am I?" I was nominated for House of Fun. It was like nobody noticed that comic except National Cartoonist Society. And I said, "Who's nominated?" And they said, "Amanda Connor." I went, "Oh!" I started laughing. And I go, "What's the matter?" He goes, "She's my friend. I don't, you know, and she's great." And so who else? And they said, "Bernie Wrightson." And I really started laughing. I was like, "Oh shit!" Well, congratulations to Bernie Wrightson. And he's like, "No, come on, we don't know." And I said, "Of course we know." And he started laughing, and he goes, "Yeah, we know, right?" Oh, but Amanda went. I literally couldn't afford to go to, I don't know, was it Pittsburgh, or if it was Jersey, I would have driven over and driven home. But I really wanted to go. That was like that's the only chance. I'm not a member. I don't work on syndicate. I didn't even know why I was. I actually told the guy, "You're wrong. I can't be nominated. I'm not in."
Not in the NCS?
No, you can nominate people who are not in the society. So, yeah, cartoonists, you know, you can be flown to Bolivia, and then you come home and you don't have enough change to eat.
Yeah.
That night. It's a really what a weird business, you know. It's like heavy metal bands, except when they go to Bolivia, they get paid well. We're huge in Germany, and I'm not huge in Germany. But what else? Yeah. Yes, that's coming out on Free Comic Book Day. I'm sorry this is even, but I actually have a lot of stuff coming out for the first time in ages. Free Comic Book Day, I will have 2 things out.
Wow.
It's not that exciting, buddy.
Well, no, I'm wetting my pants here. Come on.
Well, I'm sorry we've talked so long that you couldn't make it to the bathroom.
There you go. You got the joke.
But
models next to us.
I wrote a 12-page Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy story, Silver Age comic, for the Plankton SpongeBob SquarePants.
Nice.
Oh, that's
release.
Good. Yeah, we like that.
Chris Duffy asked me to do that. The art is by Ramona Fredone.
Damn.
Is so cool. And I got to do layouts for that, and so that was great. I got to work with Ramona Fredone and Marie Severin now, and, you know, not too many, you know, I got a couple of people in Shelley Maldoff, so I got to work with some Silver Age and Golden Age people, you know, before it was too late. And that'll be a Free Comic Book Day. I think that's for Free Comic Book Day. I don't think that's part of it. You know, the Attack on Titan book from Random House, they're doing a preview edition of the American take on Attack on Titan, and I'm doing gag strips, like fun strips from Dork.
Huh. Oh, that's cool.
So it's going to be Attack on Titan, because I don't like Attack on Titan, and I've publicly written about how I don't like Attack on Titan, at least the manga, but I'm fascinated by it and can't stop reading it. And I had to take the job because my daughter loves the fact that I can't stand Attack on Titan, because every time we go to Kinokuniya or there's always Attack on Titan stuff, and she laughs at me and picks up that Colossus Titan, the guy who had the shaving accent, and she keeps showing me that, laughing. So she said, "You have to take this job." So I'm doing all these goofy, stupid Attack on Titan things, except that I have not heard from them in weeks. So maybe I was fired because maybe Kodansha in Japan doesn't like my jokes. But there is a page that's supposed to be running in the sampler. So after that, yeah, I guess that's there's a Ben 10 episode that Sarah and I wrote for the reboot of Ben 10, or the revival of Ben 10. That was nice to be asked to do that. We wrote a segment for that. I don't know when that's going to be aired, but I assume this year. And is that it? I think that's it, right? That's enough. God damn. Just trying to do stuff. Yeah.
So we're catching you at a very fertile moment in your career.
I'm not giving birth or anything. What is it? It's not Village of the Damned, you know? But, yeah, I feel like there's something I'm missing, but who cares? Oh, I'm putting together a pitch for a series, but, you know, and it's looking decent. that I'm working on with Veronica Fish, who is the artist on Archie, and she did a Howard the Duck fill-in, and I hate to say it, I don't know what Silk is. It's a Marvel comic, but I think she did some fill-ins on that. Yeah. She's super talented. I hope we can get this going. This is the third time I'm working on the Bible because we're revising it again. I think this will be the last time, and hopefully things will go well and we'll land it. But yeah, that's everything. I mean, I'm trying to do some gag strips. I would like to do another issue of Dork, but I'm not drawing. After I do the Attack on Titan stuff and get a couple of very late commissions done, I'm going to stop drawing for a while and just do interviews like this that last 7 hours.
Well, Evan, we do appreciate you taking the time and talking with us on the Comics Alternative. And I mean, we have covered a buttload of territory.
Yes.
A metric buttload.
An ass heap of territory.
Ass heap of territory.
A bunch of crap. Yeah. I appreciate it, and thank you for the interest. Thanks for the review of the book.
Sure. And this was a long time in coming, because we should mention that this is an interview we've been discussing doing for over a year now, but various things had just come up, and so we finally got it all out, and it was worth the wait.
And maybe that's why it's so stinking long. I can blame it on that instead of the fact that I am a motor mouth.
Yeah.
But
this was a lot of fun.
Sorry to keep you an extra 8 hours.
It was our pleasure, Evan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great. Listen, right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.
Great to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, Gene, that was a lot of territory that we covered.
And the funny thing is, after we hung up, we talked for like another 40 minutes.
Oh, at least. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, every now and again, we'll point out that once we turn off the recording, sometimes we have some good conversation afterwards, but this was a long after conversation. So,
but it was lots of fun, and it's always fun to talk to Evan again. I first met him probably 20 some years ago, maybe at SPX or some other con that I'd been to at some point. And it's been great to be able to follow his career for this long and to see the kind of body of work that he's got behind him right now. I love his stuff to death. And again, Beast of Burden, I wasn't lying when I said that people had been asking me to ask about that book. Everybody that I know who's ever read that book just loves the hell out of that book.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that he wants to do more Dork.
However that comes out, I want to read more.
Yeah.
Whatever he wants to do, I'm on board.
Yeah, me too. So we want to thank Evan again for taking the time and talking with us on the Comics Alternative. And if you enjoyed the interview and you are not initiated into the wonderful, wacky world of Evan Dorkin, then go to the website of one of our sponsors, Discount Comic Book Service. And in fact, if you go to dcbservice.com right now and you do a search for Evan Dorkin, you'll find quite a number of his books are at deep discounts. So definitely check that out. Also, check out the website of our other sponsor for this episode, which is Just Coffee Co-op. Go to justcoffee.coop, and when you're checking out with your load of coffee, tea, and chocolates, make sure that you put in the coupon code COMICS, COMICS. That'll give you 10% off of your order of coffee, and shipping is free. So justcoffee.coop. And after you get your comics and your coffee at those places, get in touch with us and let us know what you think of this interview, the 2-part interview with Evan Dorkin. If you go to the website comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a recording through SpeakPipe. It's a really easy process. But you can also call us the old-fashioned way. The phone number is 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427. You can also email us. We're 2guys@comicsalternative.com, and you can email me directly. I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com. And Gene, how can they contact you directly?
And I'm Gene at comicsalternative.com.
That's right. You can also find us on Twitter. We're at the number 2 guys with PhDs. But you can find us as well on places such as Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can also find us on TuneIn. And you can find every single one of our episodes, as well as the reviews and the comics-related commentary that we post on our blog. And that's at our website, comicsalternative.com. So, Gene, it's been fun talking with Evan, and we hope to have him on again for another marathon interview.
that would be great. And believe it or not, there are still a lot of things that just I had in my notes that we never got to.
Oh, exactly.
So we definitely could have him on again, minimum of 2 more times.
Yeah. So again, Evan, thank you very much for being on the show. We had a great time. We'll be back later with more great interviews. And until then, I'm Derek.
And I'm Gene.
We'll see you later.
Take care.